Hey everybody, it's Josh here. Welcome to interview number 6 of my series, Scaling Your Divi Web Design Business. In this interview, I got a chance to chat with John Wooten of Artillery Media based in Nebraska. John is awesome. We talk about his experience as a freelancer and how he started growing his business. And we also talk about where he's at now as a partner of Superfly, which if you're in the Divi community, you're probably aware of. They have some of the best plugins out there, some of the best modern child themes you'll find. So we talk about how he's still actively involved with Artillery Media, but also building child themes and doing things for Superfly, and how he's got quite a few irons in the fire here. And more importantly, we talk about how he mentored somebody, brought them alongside him, and I'm talking about Jake, who you'll hear in the interview, who I'm going to interview in a series coming up. But we talk about how he has really delegated work and how he's freed himself up to do what he loves best. We also get into ideas on how to do recurring revenue and a lot of marketing strategies and how to manage clientele as well and maintain some profit with some of those lower end website designs as well. So we had a great talk. John and I share a kinship. We have pretty much a paralleled story of how we got into web design. So I think you'll get a kick out of it. And I know it's going to help you out with your web design business as well. John, thanks so much for taking some time and chatting with us today, man.
Thanks, Josh. Glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to dive into kind of where you're at and how you grew, your team and how you started scaling your business. But before we get into all those details, why don't you just kind of give us a quick overview of all of your involvements? I know you're involved with a few different businesses.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's John. I own and run Artillery Media. It's a small web design shop out of Lincoln, Nebraska, out of the Midwest. So shout out to the Midwest. I know you just had Andrew Tucson on, so shout out to Andrew and a couple Midwest guys.
You guys are the Silicon Prairie, right?
The Silicon Prairie, and I think you might be having Jake on too. He's also a Midwest boy, so we're all. And you're a Midwest boy, right?
Columbus, Ohio, man. Yep, yeah, we're the San Francisco of the Midwest over here. So,
absolutely. Yeah. So I run Artillery. That's kind of the main thing, and then I also own PageInADay.com, which Jake is the manager for, and he runs that pretty much. But I originally started that. And an attempt to scale, which I'm sure we'll get into. And then I'm also one of the 3 Superfly owners, which we sell Divi child themes, plugins, and layouts, stuff like that.
Awesome.
So that's pretty much it for now. There's some new things coming this next year that we're doing, that I'll be doing. But for right now, that's the 3 things.
Very cool. Yeah, 3 businesses, man. That's small change. It's time to get real. At least get that up to 5 or 6.
I know.
So before we get into some specifics about like team management and the tools you're using and stuff like that, I'm fascinated by, particularly with the fact that you're dealing with essentially kind of 3 different teams. But maybe if we backtrack a little bit. When you started, maybe let's go with Artillery, was your intent to scale from the get-go, or did you just kind of do that and then it just kind of, spiraled out from there?
So basically my ultimate goal is to make a great, comfortable living working from wherever I want. So today I'm working from home, but we have an office space with the cool brick wall and wood floor industrial, and Jake and his wife pretty much live there, I think. And I probably go there once or twice a week. And so I'm not really like a CEO mindset. I think from the get-go, I just wanted to be like that special consultant guy or designer that you would call up and, hey, we want to work with John. That's who we want to use. And so originally I just wanted to be like a one-man deal. And so when I started Artillery over 10 years ago now, there was 3 of us at the beginning. And then right away, it was just hard. As Dave Ramsey would say, the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership. Mm-hmm. And that was in that scenario, that was pretty evident right off the bat. And so a year later, the other 2 guys went off and did other things, and I was left being the sole person running it. Of course, at that time, it wasn't very profitable, but then I started growing it. So yeah, that's how I started with our Artillery, and for probably up until 2 years ago, that was it. That's the only web design business I was doing.
Okay, so you started it with a couple other partners, and then it became, your deal. When did you get to that point where you were like, okay, maybe this is a 2-part question for you, John. Number 1, when did you get that to that point where you knew, okay, I've got to scale this. I need some help. And then two, why? Why did you want to scale?
Sure. So in college is when we started it, and so we were just college buddies. I don't want to sound like there was an ugly breakup there. It definitely wasn't. It was just, hey, we all graduated and they got full-time jobs, and they just said, hey, we're going to go do this. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. I'll just continue doing this. So that I wanted to clear that up, make sure it wasn't like
sure.
Oh, this guy's a jerk.
Yeah, because sometimes things don't just work out if life paths don't align. I mean, gosh, there's tons of things that could potentially dissolve a partnership on good terms, I would imagine.
Yeah, and they're super talented dudes. Yeah, one in particular is an incredible illustrator. So and he's doing great where he's at. So over the course of 8 years, here I was freelancing. The first couple of years, I was still working a full-time job, and then I made the transition to full-time freelancer. And then I started touring on the road with the band and freelancing out of the bus. And then eventually, the last 3 years of that 8 years, I was just here in Lincoln, just freelancing away, having a great time. Well, if you do good work and you get back to people quickly, and your communication is excellent, you meet deadlines, I like to underpromise and overdeliver. Mm-hmm. Word gets around, and so I was getting asked to do a ton of work, and I'm a natural people pleaser, so it's really hard for me to tell people no. And so people were coming to me asking me to do their website, and I didn't know anyone to shove them to if I couldn't do their job.
Yep.
I didn't know anyone that was I don't know anyone else that was solid, that was going to be around the same price that I was. Since I did, at that time, I had pretty much no overhead, which is an amazing thing about an internet business, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, especially if you're lucky enough to have word of mouth working for you.
Yeah. And that's a reflection to you as well on that point, because I struggle with that sometimes. I'm like, I can't afford to take this on. It's just too small of range for me, but I don't want to send them off to somebody who's going to screw them over or churn and burn them. So I get that for sure.
I think it's a Midwest thing too. I think word of mouth is just a powerful, I've never advertised artillery or Page in a Day ever. We've never run a single Google ad or any newspaper ad. I've thought about actually doing radio ads actually locally, because I think it would really get the right target market that we want.
Have you thought about running yellow pages, John, keeping it modern?
Oh man, I actually had to in order to get our internet half off at our new office space, I had to get a phone line, which came with a yellow
page ad. That makes sense. Yeah.
So I guess we are advertising. I guess I have to include that. Yeah. So I got to this point where I was getting all these people to do work. I was doing asking me to do their work. Mm-hmm. I was doing everything from client management, billing, designing. This is before I was using Divi too. So I was custom building WordPress themes.
Were you doing like ThemeForest, like finding a theme that would fit a client, or were you doing more custom, from the ground up kind of work?
I was doing both. The budget was smaller. I was going out and finding a ThemeForest thing, which ended up coming back to bite me, support wise.
Yep.
And I think most of us have had that uncomfortable conversation. I would even tell clients from the get-go, like, this thing could be supported for 2 months or 2 years. I have no idea.
Yep.
And Divi got it. Elegant Themes got it right when they did a yearly fee for it, because that ensures they're going to be around, as opposed to a one. I mean, they have their lifetime membership, but still.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was doing both, and the custom themes I was building were from scratch. I was coding it all, HTML, CSS, a little bit of jQuery from scratch, and then using advanced custom fields to add more of the CMS aspect to it.
Okay.
And so these projects were taking a little while. Divi is much faster. Obviously, the drag and drop page builder's phenomenal. I'm finally warming up to the front end editor, because I'm sure that classic one's going to go away. Sorry, Leslie, it's going to go away.
Yeah, Leslie Bernal, she didn't like the front end. I love it now. I've really come around to it. I lay my pages out in the back end, and I jump in the front end to do text changes and padding and stuff like that.
And now I'm trying to use that outline view more, because I do think, because right now the classic builder is a totally different system, so they're supporting two systems. So eventually it would make sense that they would retire it, hang the jersey up in the rafters. So so these sites were taking quite a while. And so I was working a ton of hours. And when I'm doing everything from client management to launching the product, inputting content, getting content from clients, which we all know is the hardest part. Mm-hmm. I was just swamped. Plus I was still doing music. And so that's when I decided I was in the middle of 19 projects. And that's when I decided I need to find somebody. Time to scale.
Time to scale. So that's great, John. That's a great kind of summary of how you started and how you got to that point. So my question is, I guess, let's just keep on going along with that time frame. What did you do next? Did you look for somebody local? Were you looking in Divi Facebook groups at that time? How did you, I know maybe you can talk about how you met up with Jake, who's kind of your main guy who you alluded to earlier. How did that relationship come about? How did you hire him?
Sure. Yeah. So I tried a couple designers to help out first, because I thought, okay, I can take what they do and massage it and whatnot. But in my experience, a lot of the designers, their time management and their ability to meet deadlines is just really, it's harder for them too, I feel like. Yep. And the designers I was finding, and maybe I was finding the wrong ones, but it was very frustrating, because I would be like, man, I could do this in half the time and have it done on time, this and that. So there was a trust aspect there. And then I tried a couple developers, and I found a couple great, phenomenal developers. But if they're freelance developers, they know they're great, they know they're phenomenal, and so eventually they raise their rates, and it's hard to make money on top of what you're paying them. And so then in the meantime, I discovered Divi, and when I discovered Divi, it probably cut down my need for custom dev probably 90%. I mean, which I felt bad for the developer I was using, but with Divi in the mix, I just didn't need as much development from him. And so when I found Divi, then I was like, okay, I could teach somebody how to do Divi, and the right person. So meanwhile, I was playing in this country cover band, and Jake was playing I met Jake and brought him into the band because he could play fiddle and he could play bass and guitar. And when you can do multiple things like that, you're valuable in a band. And I think the key moment that I remember, because he wasn't involved in web design at all.
Okay.
This is probably not even 3 years ago. And he was still in college. He had a part-time job at night, and so we'd ride to these shows together, and we just kind of started this friendship. And then he would run his fiddle, and I'm going to geek out on music stuff here a little bit, but he would run his violin fiddle, through a guitar multi-effects processor, so he could put delay on it, he could put an octave on it, so it sounded like a couple octaves, so it sounded like 3 violins instead of 1. He'd put a little verb on there, and he put some compression, and so he was dialing into this pedal had an interface on it, and he's dialing into these settings, and he's tweaking them, and I was just like, dude, you should learn Divi.
You would be a great web designer.
If you like tweaking this stuff.
Yep.
And so initially I said, here's what I'll do. I'm going to put you on a retainer. I think it was either $500 or $750 a month. I said, I'm going to put you on a retainer. Here's how many hours I want. You can work whenever and wherever you want.
Wow.
And I just want you to help me put in content. And I taught him basically the basics of HTML, the structure, how to use headings and all that stuff, and he just dove into Divi, and at first was just inputting content in. And along the way, I'm teaching him how to edit images in Photoshop and things like that for the web and stuff like that. And then slowly, he just started taking on more and more responsibility, to now where before I was getting all our contact emails for customer leads. He gets all those now. I don't get any.
Wow. Okay. So you really freed yourself up from a lot of the stuff you were doing even 2-3 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like Jake handles all incoming leads. Him and his wife, Haley, handle all client onboarding, client management, getting content from the client. They handle all. Basically, when we do a project together now, if the client has a budget for a custom designed site, they do the wireframes, and I design the homepage. I present the mock-up to the client. And then once the client approves that mock-up, I develop the homepage and one interior layout. And then Jake and Haley can go in and take all those sections that I've made in Divi, easily use those for other interior pages and edit them as they see fit.
Gotcha.
And so I basically cut my time down on projects from being 40 to 80 hours down to maybe 10 to 20, if that.
Yeah.
And so that way we're able to take on more clients. And now we have another guy on retainer that we're trying to do the same with. So that's pretty big. So yeah, my time has been freed up a ton. And so now I can focus on, that's when I really started once my time started getting freed up, that's when I started focusing on productizing.
And that's kind of my next question for you. That's so great, by the way. And we'll probably talk about that a little more because I'm of the same mindset, and I feel a kinship with you, John, because we have almost the exact same story. I'm not quite to your level as far as where you're at with your freedom and the businesses you're running, but the fact that you have that mindset, you came from the music world and all that, I totally back you up on all that. My question is then for you personally, what's your favorite kind of work to do? Did you, do you enjoy the client stuff, or did you feel like you wanted to kind of break free from that? It sounds like you were getting into more like the product stuff with Divi. Sure. Yeah. And I think I'm deceivingly a little younger looking than I actually am. So I'm actually, upwards, 37, 38 years old, somewhere in there. So I agree. I share the same kinship. Still impressive, man. No doubt.
But I just had a little more time to try to build this thing. And then, then you got people like Andrew, right, who go in and just blow things up. Mm-hmm. So, but like I said, man, when you're after that freedom, that's what I really wanted was freedom. When Jake first came on board, he's got more of a CEO mindset than I do. So I think really knowing your seat in the car or whatever analogy you want to use, knowing your role. And so that's why I switched to having Jake handle all the leads and stuff, because he enjoys that part, where me, not so much. Like if I'm feeling overloaded and a lead comes in, I would be like, okay, I don't want to take any more work. I'm going to raise this price. I'm going to try to make this guy go somewhere else, whatever. Where Jake has an ability to manage all that, and that's what he's naturally good at. And then naturally I'm good at design. And so the thing that I love about Jake and I is that since he's handling all the onboarding with the clients and he's asking them for content and he's assigning them deadlines, well, he's also assigning me deadlines for design. Oh, okay. And then I build the client at the end of the day, and then for the most part. Mm-hmm. And then I always tell Jake, I'm like, I love it because when the client gets to interact with me, it's like happy times. It's like, hey, this is John. It's energetic designer. Oh, okay. It's the fun part of the project. We get to design this thing, and he's all excited, and we're excited. And then I can even complain with the client about Jake. Like the client could say, man, Jake's really honest to get content. And I can be like, oh, he's on me too about getting these designs done. Yeah. And then when they get the invoice from me, they want to pay it because John's the fun guy. We like John. Oh, wow. And so that's funny, man. John. and you freed yourself up, it sounds like, from those first initial steps that can be really, really draining from a freelance web design perspective, because you're trying to get content, you're trying to solidify the proposal and the deal, you're talking with them. There's so many initial onboarding steps so it sounds like you're freed up to do what you do best, which is designing, right? Is that your favorite thing to do? Is just the actual designing? My absolute favorite part is designing. I feel like it can be stressful too because everyone has an opinion on design as opposed to code. Mm-hmm. When's the last time a client inspected, elemented your site and said, hey, I don't like what you did with that div. Right, I think you should put that div under that other div. Right, in that code. No, it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, well, hey, make my logo bigger, or hey, this needs to pop more, or hey, this needs to be more interactive, or whatever they say. Yeah. And since I'm a natural people pleaser, when it comes to the design phase, I can easily say yes to clients because whatever I design, I can guarantee that I can build in Divi for them. As opposed to the beginning when they're going through all the features they need and scope creep, I was pretty bad at managing scope creep, where Jake has no problem being straight up with the client and saying, no, that's not what we agreed to. We can do that, but it's going to be this much extra. Where I have a heart, I'm like Jake, no, just kidding. Where I would be more like, oh yeah, I can do that for you, or okay, yeah, I see. That's I would put myself in their shoes probably too much. Yeah, and I completely relate to you because I'm wired the exact same way. So
Did you know that about Jake when you started working together? That because it sounds like he's a good compliment to you for a lot of I mean, a lot of what you're talking about is good when you're a one-man freelance and you're just building up your portfolio and you're working with clients, because people pleasing at first is great. You're not saying no to as many things. That's good in a lot of ways. But you got to that point, and I'm at that point right now where I have to say no a lot more. I can't be doing what I continue to do and not work 60, 70 hours a week or whatever it is. My question is, when you met with Jake initially, did you know any of that about him, or did it just kind of play out to where you saw, or maybe he saw some of your weaknesses and areas that he could step into? Is that kind of how that worked?
Yeah, both ways. So through the band, I knew that he was very straightforward in giving people answers. Like, hey, the song goes like this, or if he was, if it's tricky. What I really appreciate about how Jake, and I really feel like I lucked out, like finding Jake, like he's almost like a unicorn, because our relationship is, he can tell me both ways, dude, that's the wrong way to do that, and we're not going to get offended. Where a lot of people, I think, would, or hey, that doesn't look right, fix that, or whatever. And in the band days, it was, hey, dude, you're not playing that part right, and we'd be like, okay, yeah, and then you listen to it and you're like, oh, you're right, yeah, let me do this. Where some people would get offended at that. I think that's a big key in our working relationship, is that we're able to, I mean, we're friends, but we're able to, iron sharpens iron. The whole,
you got to kind of compartmentalize all that as well when you're friends, but you're also business. There's tough conversations that you need to work out. I mean, I can totally see how you got to kind of step into different boxes with each other on that. It's like a marriage, sometimes things are great. Sometimes you're having fun. Sometimes you got to look at finances. Sometimes you got to work through an issue. So I imagine it's, with a working relationship, it's probably a good parallel to that.
Well, and we both of us listen to Dave Ramsey quite often. Throw Dave Ramsey in this mix again, but he has his kids work for him. And so when his kids are at the office, it's not, hey, there's my dad and there's my son. It's no, there's my department manager and there's my boss. And so at work, they're treated like any other employee, or I'm sure there's some bias, but for the most part. But then outside of that, it's, hey, we're family. And I think Jake and I have that. Where at work, we're like, hey, these are our roles. And he actually doesn't work for me. He is his own LLC. I'm my own LLC, and we work together. So it's very interesting. It's a different scenario. He's no longer on that initial retainer, because it wouldn't even close to make sense now. So he makes his own. Basically, he's a subcontractor, I guess. And you know what? And he could leave and start his own thing, but he's so dedicated to the brand that we've built together. And I think initially, if I would have hired him for, hey, dude, I'll give you 30 or 40 grand a year, I don't know if he would have worked as hard at it.
And that's a great segue, because my next question for you was going to be, how you got that mindset of it. It sounds like really empowerment was the big thing for him. Like, you didn't just say, hey, here's the to-do list I need you to do for this amount of money. It was like you were teaching him and training him. And I know that can be really costly for people if those people don't stick around, or if they run and do their own things. But I know I was talking with Tim Streifler, and about some of his experience with this and hiring. And we were talking about how it's probably very easy to see the work that you don't want to do, the problem clients, the issues that are very draining, and you want to hire those out for cheaply as possible. But in the long run, is that going to behoove you if you're just you're getting crap work, you're making somebody miserable, they're barely making any money? Of course they're going to leave. So I imagine in your case, and I don't know how much of this was intentional or it just kind of worked out that way, but it sounds like you gave Jake, in this case, room to grow. And now he's got some freedoms. It sounds like, if he's doing the work he loves, if you're doing the work you love, why change it? If you're having the freedoms and it's a good mix. Yeah. I mean, is that, I guess my question would be, was that intentional, or did you kind of learn from that, empowering him?
I think originally I didn't expect him to leave, but I was always prepared. Like, okay, if him and Haley go off and start their own design agency and whatnot, because as I said, I think he's more of a CEO than I am. And so I could see Jake wanting someday to, hey, I want maybe 6 or 8 or 10 employees, downtown at the office, where if I had 6 or 8 employees, I would have to be at the office, and I don't want to be at the office. I want to be floating around wherever I want, designing whatever I want, wherever I want. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
For like the 4-hour work week mentality, I want to be able to be work wherever, whenever, and the things that I like to work on, and then maybe spend 4 hours a week doing stuff that I really would rather not do.
Gotcha. And that's you hit on something real quick. Just before we lose that thought, John, is if they were to leave, it sounds like you were in your. I mean, you never want to prepare for something to fail, but you probably do need to have kind of a fail safe to where if something happened, or if he decided to do something else, you're going to take on all those clients again. So you want to make sure that you don't screw yourself over in the long run, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where that Divi freelancers Facebook group comes in handy.
Nice.
Or where it would come in handy.
Right.
But no,
right.
I feel like I've really lucked out in finding someone like Jake, to be able to trust them and to be able to sell them on the idea of, hey, dude, I think this whole entrepreneur freedom thing is really what you're after. And then I already had the word of mouth. I already built the reputation up. And so I think being able to offer him that right away, like, hey, you're going to have enough work right off the bat. Because how many freelancers start out having quality work right off the bat? At first you kind of go through those lower budget clients, or you have to take on a bad client every now and then to pay the bill early on. And then, as you know, bad clients bring more bad clients.
Yes,
exactly what they. Cheap clients refer cheap clients. Bad clients refer bad clients. And so what can you do? And then in your spot, let's say you're overloaded right now. So you might think, okay, I know what I'll do. I'll raise my prices. Or you do that, and then you're going to get busier. It's just it's a crazy phenomenon.
Yeah,
for us anyway.
Yeah, no, I've seen that play out. Everything you've said right there has played out in my business in the 7+ years I've been doing this. And so that's what's really interesting is there's no right or wrong to any of this, but what I'm so fascinated about with this series and all these interviews is everyone has a lot of the same common struggles and wins, but we all do things a little bit differently, which is really cool. And I think, some people, when it comes to scaling and adding people, I know one thing that I'm kind of thinking about, and the way you talked about how you got Jake trained, and now did you do all that face to face? Because I know it could be a little bit difficult if it's remote. Were you guys actually like face to face, like you were literally showing him things on Photoshop, or did you make tutorials or things like that? I
have a library of videos.
Okay.
Yeah, which
awesome.
we use to train clients too, but I made videos of everything because I figured someday I'm going to bring in another person. And who would I be looking for? I think the traits I'm looking for is, obviously they got to be hardworking, they got to be honest. And that's where us Midwest boys kind of have it kind of raised that way, I think, for the most part. But a tinkerer, they like to tinker on things. That's what I've because Divi is so easy to learn. You can teach Divi. Like design, do they have to have an eye for design? Yeah, maybe, but that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, and you can learn that too. That's stuff you can't really teach a tinker, maybe, but there are some personality traits that you're just kind of wired with, from the get go. And it's funny you were talking about the music thing, and that's how you saw that. It wasn't on a resume. I don't know what your interview process, or if you technically have, an onboarding interview for team members. Maybe you will if you're scaling more, but yeah, that's fascinating because it sounds like you saw personality traits that you knew would work with you and the business. And to your point, so on the whole training video stuff, that's what actually I just revamped what I call my client resources page for all my clients, showing the basics of WordPress, basics of Divi. I know that Divi has redesigned and redone all of their tutorials, but it is intimidating for people to go on that, and they're like, I don't even know what. A lot of my clients call it Divi. They're like, I don't even know what this Divi thing is. So I put the basics out there, and to be transparent, that's kind of a thing that I'm going to do for people I start bringing on as well. So it'll be like a catalog of tutorials. My joshhall.co stuff, all the free tutorials I'm giving out. I love building community. I love the Divi community. I love giving out to fellow freelance web developers. But another reason I've done that is because I want to have a catalog of little tricks and things that I know. That way, when I'm designing sites, if somebody wants to say, hey, we want to put a button in the menu, I can say, well, just check out my tutorial site. It walks you through exactly how to do it. So again, ditto, man, on all that for sure.
Yeah, and I think if I were to we've actually talking the last couple of weeks about, all right, time to find the next Jake or the next, whatever. And I would probably do the retainer approach again. And the first month, I would just say, hey, your job this month is just to go through this training. I'm going to pay you on the job training. I'm going to pay you to go through this training and just to learn. And I might not be as lucky next time. Maybe we go through a couple people before we find another person like Jake. But I feel like between the network we have, we really know the type of person we're looking for to be able to do that, because it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. If the right person came, here's the amazing thing about WordPress, Divi, the interwebs, is that if the right person came in and learned Divi and went after it, yeah, in a year time, you could be full-time working from home. No doubt in my mind. You could sell, three $1,500 website a month, and you'd be making $4,500 a month times 12, whatever, minus taxes, expenses. Sure, you can live off that. Even $3,000 a month. So, yeah, I think that's great. So when I can package that up and find the right person with the entrepreneurial mindset that maybe doesn't want to start from scratch, I think that's the benefit that we give them is, hey, look, we've been there, we've made the mistakes, so you don't have to. Join us, and we'll help you build your own thing. Yep. Under our umbrella.
That's a great mindset, and that's a kind of a sales piece if you're looking for somebody is, how much time and hard lessons learned can you avoid by just kind of shadowing somebody, interning somebody who's where you want to be. And I've talked recently about, because obviously Divi Chat, I'm involved with that more, and I still think that's the most underrated amount of value. You know how much time and energy you can save yourself by listening to experts talk about their experience? It's huge, and I think that's kind of what you're alluding to there. So that leads me to this big question.
You might want to change that from Divi Chat to WordPress Chat. Maybe the Divi part is getting people from because you guys talk about about Divi, but you talk about all these things that web designers face all the time. Yeah. And it's so much more than Divi.
There may be room for like almost a separate entity. Sure. Divi is so big now that I think we could still pull off encompassing that. But yeah, to your point, I mean, it's all basic related. And a lot of my tutorials you can do on any, WordPress site. But yeah, that's a good point. And so as we're talking about bringing people in, let me ask you this. Do you wait until you have enough money to be able to do that, or you have the mindset that, okay, we just need to charge a little more, or just factor this in, like I'm probably going to lose $500 a month, in hopes that this person works out? How do you feel about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, this is like, there's two approaches on this, huh? Because even now we could go out now and hire someone full time. But again, I just don't know if they would own it like I want them to. I just don't want someone working to collect that paycheck. I want someone who's going to see the opportunity and really help grow.
Ownership. That's good. That's a good
ownership.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, yeah, they're in control of how much they get to make, how much they get to work. That was just a big thing for me. And so, yeah, what I would do is, I mean, with Jake, I didn't purposely wait till I had the money, but since I was in the middle of 19 projects, and most of those projects were between $2,000 and $4,000, so I didn't need all that, and that was in a section of a year.
Okay, so you knew the revenue was going to be there regardless, right?
I was making good enough money to where I could pay him $30,000 or $40,000. Okay, but I just didn't. I didn't want to.
Right. Yeah, but that's a great approach.
That's why I'm not a good CEO there. Like a good CEO or a good owner would be like, hey, I'm going to make peanuts, $24,000 a year to build this great thing, and that definitely works. That definitely works for people, and my hat's off to those people. But since my goal in the beginning was always to have freedom, freelance whenever and wherever I wanted, and live a comfortable lifestyle, I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to live on peanuts to make that happen. Well, and maybe someday that'll come back and bite me. Maybe that means I'll never sell my business for $10 million. Right. That's what it means. But if I make killer money for 20 plus years, and I invest correctly, and I save, and I do those things, I might even end up in the same spot.
I know, and it's funny, man, because like in corporate America, like I'm taking a business coaching class right now that has helped me tremendously with just my mindset of stepping in the shoes of the owner. But, you know, a lot of businesses are like set up just so they can sell it one day and go chill on a beach. I don't want to do that. I love going to a beach, but that's not the goal of this. Like, I honestly have no intention of selling my business. The Divi stuff I'm doing, I'm not barely getting paid for it anyway. So, you know, right now I don't have really many products or anything. Like, that's just passion for me. But soon, I've got some child themes and stuff. Yeah, soon. But
absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's a great mindset. And I think, so to kind of get us back on track with building your team, I think that plays true to that, because like with Jake, instead of just saying, okay, here's 30 grand for a year, you know, they see that end goal, there's a cap. It's like, well, why do I need to work so hard? I feel like the retainer deal, I don't know how you phrase it initially, but if you tell them, shoot, here's where it starts, you know, that we'll train you, but then sky's the limit. You could take this knowledge, we continue. You could also do your own thing along with what we're doing. That's kind of the approach I'm trying to have with some of the subcontractors I'm dealing with right now, is I want to empower them. So if they want to do their own thing, as long as the deadlines I'm giving them are getting done, take what I'm giving you and then apply it, which sounds like what you're doing.
Yeah, and now I'm helping, and now we're talking, okay, Jake, how can we, because I run our maintenance security plans, so I have recurring revenue through that, and I have recurring revenue through a couple other sources. I think my Divi chat episode was on some recurring revenue.
Yeah, great one.
But and now we're looking at, okay, Jake, how can we do that for you? How can I help you build your recurring revenue stream? Nice. Like, hey, you've experienced the going in and being your own boss on 100% client work. And that's fun and that's great, but after 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you're going to get burnt out on that. I think if someone's doing 100% client work, long haul, they're going to get burnt out. So my goal, going back to the original question on what does my goal look like for client work, product stuff like that. My goal over the next 2 years is I think right now my client work to product ratio is probably 60% client, 40% product.
Okay.
And I want it to be 80% product, 20% client within like the next 2 years, maybe even the next year. Depends on what we launch this year, what I get done this year. But
gotcha.
So that's my ultimate goal. So then for artillery, how does that look like for scaling? I think this is what should happen. I think the pageindaday.com website should be clients who have, let's say, I'll just use some arbitrary numbers. Let's say they have less than $2,500, $2,500 or less. They go to pageindaday.com. And it's not set up like this right now, but my vision, they would have 6 or 9 or 12 child themes sitting there, like Squarespace. You pick your,
kind of like a template style,
right? But the difference is, and what everybody misses, they're not clear enough about. Because I have another business that sells templates to motivational speakers, and I think they start at $49 and $79 a month, and people are like, well, I could just go get a Squarespace site for $12. Yeah, but you have to build it. We're going to build this thing for you. We're going to manage it for you. Right. And we have some features that are specifically for speakers. And I think so in this approach, it's like, or even taking that page in a day model and saying, hey, you have under $2,500. How about this? You pay X amount per month. And that's for forever, like yourself. And here's the 6 child themes. I mean, you could do this eventually with your child theme. Here's the 6 child themes that I have. And I'm going to customize the colors for you. I'm going to put your logo, your content. And you know what? And use this for the next 1 to 2 years to build your business up, client, and then set aside resources so that we can get you that custom site 2 or 3 years down the road. And then so that's what I want the lowest tier to be. And then this other guy that we have on retainer, this designer, I want him to be the junior designer that works on projects that are, let's say, between $2,500 and $5,000. And then 5K, 10K plus would be the ones that I would work on, which would be the 20% of the client work.
Gotcha.
So that's my ultimate scaling long-term thing. It involves 4 people max, a junior designer, Jake and Haley to do all the content, client onboarding and all that stuff. Haley does all our proposals. She's phenomenal at it. And then there's me, the designer, and then every once in a while, we subcontract out a developer. For a Divi business, I don't even know if you need a developer full time anymore.
I don't think so. Yeah. That's great, man. What a cool.
That's my ultimate.
I really appreciate you being transparent and kind of giving that model out, because I think it's great. It inspires me for sure. I have something similar in my head, but the way you kind of break that out into tiers, I think, is great, because I think what a lot of people do and what I've seen with freelance web designers is they segregate themselves between those three price ranges you're talking about. Most people start out under the 2,500 with your average pizza shop or mechanic business or something that can maybe do, 1,500 or $2,000. But that next level is that mid-range level where the majority of my clients are now. But then you get to that top one. Like recently, I just did a proposal for a 15K job, which is by far my biggest one. And I'm kind of like right in between all there, but I don't want to, I don't want to get rid of my lower end clients ideally because some of them have been so great. A lot of them are on my maintenance plan, so it's recurring income. And so I don't want to lose that, but I also don't want to take the headache of those big 15, 20K jobs all the time either, which I know, you get paid that much, you're gonna earn your bucks. So I think it's a great model. I think that's probably really inspirational for everyone who hears this because you could probably take that same mindset and just rework it however many people it takes or where your skill sets lie. So I think that's great, man. Thank you so much for that. Let's and I'm not sure
go ahead. On the larger project, my philosophy on the larger project is you have to watch out because there's a lot of the larger the budget, the more red tape, the more decision makers are involved, right? And I just think knowing your market and know where you fit. So for us, the market that we knock it out of the park is because a lot of folks who have 15K plus, we've done a couple sites like that. You're competing with other agencies at that point, and so they're offering them other features that you might not have, other services you might not have, or they're building it and something maybe even more robust. Dare I say Drupal? Oh my gosh. And then at the end of the day, it's like and maybe do this after your 15K project. Maybe tally up all the hours you spent on that 15K project. Right. You're gonna sell them one maintenance plan at the end of the day, right? Could you have done 5 3K websites and sold 5 maintenance plans in the same or less time? Plus, then you have because your 15K. This is bad. This is probably.
Hold on, John. Let me email that client and tell him it's not going to work out. That's great.
This is the non-CEO in me. This is
wow. That's great. That's a great mindset.
Well, because the 15K clients are going to just as 1,000K client or 1,000K, 1K clients breed more 1K clients. Your 15K, they won't as often, but they'll breed other 10, 15, 20K clients. But if you did 5 3K projects, you have 5 people now who are happy with your work, and those 5 people are going to go out and tell. So I don't know. We just know Divi so well, and for us, it's that mom and pop small business website between 3 to 5K that we just knock out of the park. Yep. I think that they're happy with us. They love us. Our Google reviews show that. If you need SEO boost, get Google reviews. By the way, they show that, and that's just where we fit. Not that we can't.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, man. That's my typical price range as well. Mine's usually anywhere between 25 to 45 in that range.
Sure, yeah.
But that seems to be at least in the Midwest. I don't know how it is. I know on the East Coast, particularly maybe New York City or some California. I'm sure the pricing is a little bit different. But the majority of cities in the U.S., that's going to be that healthy range. And that's where there's some agencies in town where they're charging like 100K for websites. And I'm like, there is just no way the average small business is going to be able to go any more than probably 10 if they're just, depending on what else you're involving on. But that's great, man. That really inspires me for sure. And I think that's, cool. Those are just those are some good thoughts, man. So how are you doing on time, by the way? I wasn't sure if you had to nick out any certain time.
I'll go as long as you want me to.
Okay, sweet. We'll try to keep this under 5 hours because this is good stuff. So, how do you go about, you're dealing with different teams and everything now, and of course, the Superfly stuff. You guys are remote, so Jake's in town, but the Superfly guys, no one else is in your area with Superfly, right?
No, they're out in South Carolina.
So let's talk practically about tools that you guys are you using Slack for communication? Do you avoid email? What's that look like for you guys?
Yeah, Slack. Boy, Slack has been the email killer for us for sure. That's even what got me onto Slack. I went to their homepage and it was like reduce your email by 70% and I was like, sign me up. So I have probably four different teams. I'm not big on being a part of a ton of teams in Slack or anything. But for Superfly, we use Slack, and then I'm not involved in as much on the day-to-day operations for Superfly, but for our day-to-day operations for artillery and page in a day, we use Basecamp, and then Jake just got into a CRM like 2 weeks ago, because we were doing all that ourselves in our own kind of systematic way.
With Basecamp, do you guys set up like a calendar with due dates or anything like that? Or because I know a lot of people I've talked to so far are really into Trello. I tried Trello out, but I didn't care for it. I need to maybe give that another look. But yeah, how do you guys manage?
When I brought Jake on, I was using Trello just for myself because I had all these, here's all the things I need to do a website: design, develop, blah blah blah, launch checklist, all the stuff. Ask for a review, ask for this, and it was easy to slide those over to in progress or done. I could see where all these projects were. What started to drive me nuts about Trello was when people started, when I brought Jake in, he would comment on the individual cards, and I was just like, I can't keep it straight. Like, where's that comment at? Where's this at? And so that's when having every project having its own Slack channel really helped. So Basecamp pretty much, so we try to keep all communication about a project internally in Slack, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
In Slack. I want to use Slack. I want my stuff in Slack. And so, but I'm assigned to dues from Basecamp, and I just literally log in. I launch the Basecamp app and check it off. Or if I need a wireframe, I know to go in Basecamp. I know where it's at.
Okay.
But Jake and Haley, they primarily use, they use Basecamp to communicate with the client, and then they use it for themselves mostly. So
okay, yeah, because I have a similar deal to where in Basecamp, I'll do, if we have any team threads in there, I'll just make sure the client can't see it, which is a really nice feature of it. And then
we have no clients on Slack, none.
No, on Slack. Well, okay.
Oh, sorry.
I was talking Basecamp, but yeah, no, that's common too. It sounds like, to where Slack is purely internal, Basecamp or Asana or maybe these other project management tools are to get clients involved, which inevitably there's some clients who just will not get off of email. I'm telling all my clients that I do not respond to text. That's kind of one of my goals for this year.
No way.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I got to get rid of my mobile number as my business number. That's on my to-do as well. But yeah, that's a big one. And I think, and I know that's just so tricky. And particularly, you guys don't have a huge team right now, but gosh, can you imagine you get 10, 15, which doesn't sound like you want to get to this point. But for those who do have an agency of that size, wow, I can only imagine how hairy that could get if you've got Facebook messages, texts, emails, notes on Skype. My gosh.
Well, I think at that level, you would just have a full-time project manager doing everything, and they're like the key. They're the key person that knows everything. Yeah, actually, my phone number is not even on the website anymore. That would be Jake's phone number. That's what you need. Gotcha. You need a Jake, man.
I've been saying for a while that I needed Josh like 3 years ago. That's really that's
clone
really,
yourself.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to clone myself. Yeah, but that with complementary strengths like you did. Because again, the stuff that I enjoy doing, I'm similar in that I love designing, but I'm kind of a little more CEO minded now. I think I'm loving the marketing. I'm loving the product stuff. I love teaching. My tutorials, it's not. I've neglected some client work because I just love doing tutorials so much.
Yeah, they're fun.
And I don't think most people like doing that, which is fine. And what I meant to say before I kind of derailed there was, it's not that the support work or, when it comes to like database migrations or hosting or email issues, it's not that work isn't valuable, but it gets to a point where if you're going to lead something, you got to do the big picture stuff and you got to be the head of the organization. And that's kind of what I've realized. I'm at the point where I'm like, I have just got to get I have got to get out of some of those roles because I'm wearing all the hats, So yeah, that's great. That's super valuable. Okay, so Slack, definitely. Basecamp. Are you guys on the new Basecamp 3 or are you on Basecamp 2? Because I'm on 2.
We're on Basecamp 3. Oh, okay. If I open the app, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I know it's like I wish it was like an upgrade, but it sounds like it's a whole different platform, right? It's a whole different system. Because I know I talked to their support about that, and they basically said you need to like set up a new account and projects don't migrate over or anything like that.
Oh. Fortunately, we started with Basecamp 3.
Oh, okay.
And now they're saying they're coming out with an update to Basecamp 3. Okay. Basecamp was a big decision. That was on Jake. I told you that was on 100% his decision.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've been using it since 2014. So yeah, I'm definitely on the second version. Which any project manager will work. Anybody who's watching this, you can choose anything that will work. I know for me, it was just about getting things out of my head and onto file or, somewhere. And if you're working with a team, a remote team, it's got to be off of your computer or off of your desk. Speaking of that, I don't want to pass this up. How do you guys manage your logins? Particularly for like Superfly, where you've got, maybe it's different with Superfly because you're not dealing with client logins, but are you guys using LastPass or anything like that, or are all your logins internal?
Couple things. So we use 1Password, like individually to have all our different logins. Like back in the day, I probably had tons of MySpace accounts saved in 1Password.
Yeah.
And now I have a ton of different. For a while I had a ton of different WordPress test sites in there. And all the client stuff's in there. Jake has all the client stuff in there too. But for passwords, every client project folder has an info sheet in there that has the username and password for the stuff that we need. And then when we first log into the project to work on it, we both have 1Password. We save it. We don't share our 1Password files because we have personal stuff in there too. And then for the company, we have a Google Sheet that has all the logins and passwords to certain products that we've bought, a lot of Divi stuff that we bought from other people, or like our like Envato account, where, we're a member of their yearly thing or whatnot. And there's some stock photo stuff that we're part of. So that's how we manage that. So there's a nice central sheet for that.
Do you feel comfortable with Google Was that a Google Sheet? Do you feel comfortable with the security of that? Because I know a lot of people, are leery about putting passwords on a Google Sheet.
I'm fine. There's nothing. I mean, there's nothing financial on there.
Okay. So you're not going to. Your bank account password isn't on the Google Sheet.
It's not. No, definitely not. But Dropbox is.
Gotcha.
So I guess if someone hacked in, they could hack into to Dropbox and stuff. But our 1Password, there's nothing, and they'd have to crack 1Password to get. And if they crack 1Password, then they deserve that.
They can take the client, the mechanical client fixers if they really want them. Yeah. Yeah, that's great, man. That's really good. So this has been great, John. We've talked about your experience with how you kind of got Artillery started, how you kind of got Jake on board and how you grew that. It sounds like how you left room for him to be able to be empowered to not only excel with you, but not leave you. Like you guys are, hand in hand, and talked about some of the tools you use, kind of your clientele. We've gone over some really good stuff. I think we've covered pretty much everything I, wanted to ask you initially. I guess the last thing here before we wrap up is, do you have any final thoughts or any tips that you would recommend to people, who are in my situation or maybe the step below me where they're like, just a one-man shop? Because I've subcontracted for a few years now, but me 3 years ago didn't have any experience. What would you tell me? Well, that's my question. What would you tell Josh 3 years ago who's like, wanting to stop wearing every hat?
Sure. Well, I'd compliment you on becoming an entrepreneur, becoming a full-time, becoming your own boss full-time. That's incredible. I think a lot of people, the longer you freelance, you lose sight of that. You forget that you even did that in the first place. Easy to compare yourself to other businesses or other freelancers that you see and feel like you're not, I'm not doing enough. But if you really maybe step back, take some meditation time and focus on what you should be grateful for, and that you're not driving to that 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 job anymore, I think that really sets you up well to be optimistic and hopeful for the day and grateful for the client work that you do have, because it's easy to get down on it. It's easy to get down on that one client that wants whatever another round of edits or who knows what. So I think I would say that. Number two, you got to know yourself. You got to know your role. You got to know your strengths and your desires, and don't try to be something you're not. Like, I'm not going to try to be an Andrew Tucson, because I would not like that. I would not like being the first person to the office and the last one leaving. I have zero desire to be that. But on the other hand, the important question that really turned me on to productization was when Jake asked me one day, probably within the first 6 months of him being on board, he's like, John, are you going to be building websites when you're 60? And that question really got me. I was like, I'm like you. I'm not going to retire to find out I hate golf or something like that, right? Like, I'm always going to be doing something. whether it's whether it's training, whether it's teaching. I'm even considering doing a live local course, like in person.
Yeah.
Because like you, I like teaching. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's more of a consultant role, or who knows what. But I'm always going to be doing something. But that really got me started on what do I want? Okay, so yeah, I don't want 8 or 10 people and a large agency. But you know what? Maybe I do want a couple. Maybe I do need. What would happen if I brought in a few? And the cool thing about the retainer approach is, I think we both knew from the get-go, hey, let's try this for 6 months, and if it works out, sweet. If not, no big deal. We can make it. We can figure it out.
Gotcha.
So I would say, think about, okay, 20 years from now, and I know Tim Ferriss would say that's a dumb question. You should ask yourself, what excites you? Okay, what would excite you 5 years from now? What kind of work would you be doing that would excite you 3 or 5 years from now? And for me, what would excite me is maybe working 4 to 6, or being able. I don't know if I'll ever only work 4 to 6 hours a day. I don't know if I'm capable of it, but being able to say, today I'm going to work 2 or 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
There's this productivity planner I use that uses Pomodoro sprints, that it asks you, if you only got one thing done every day and you could feel good about yourself, what is that one thing? And I think eventually that's where I want to be, is, okay, that one thing might take 4 hours, but it's that design for the site for this certain client that I nailed, or maybe it's a new product that I launch, or who knows what. But I think just envisioning in your mind so for me, it's that 80-20.
Gotcha.
80% product, 20% client. That's what I'm after. That's what I'm shooting for.
And that's what's so great about this whole series about scaling your business. I'm not doing this intentionally so everyone's gonna, be making 7 figures, $1 million web agencies. It's just all about your freedoms. What do you want in this? I know for me, the reason I wanted to start scaling about, more detail, really like last year, maybe 2 years ago, was I was at that time, I ran the business for about 6 years. I got a pretty good system down. I'm still systematizing everything, but I'm at to the point to where, I kind of have everything pretty much down to a T between my onboarding process, my sales and everything. And I just got not bored. And maybe you got this way too with client work, but I just felt a little uncontent. Is uncontent a word? I don't know, incontent. Whatever. I just didn't feel like I remember years ago, I would, the first time I landed a $3,000 job, I was through the moon. I was pumped. I was like, man, $3,000. Now that's before I got to, it's before I started thinking about profit and taxes and everything else, what I'd be taking home. But nonetheless, and now I got to that point where it was like, oh, cool. Okay, 3,000. Cool. Yeah, that'll work. And then I kind of had to catch myself with what you were just talking about. That was I neglected thinking about how fortunate I am. I was going to say lucky, but I don't believe in luck. I think you make your own luck. But how fortunate I am to be in this position where, I don't have to go to a job. And I have so many friends who are, they're hating their day job. And I have so many family members who I feel bad for them. But I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's like, I kind of lost sight of that. And that was a moment for me where I was like, wow, I got kind of bored with that. And then once I started my Divi involvement and once I started doing my tutorials, it gave me a chance I didn't get away from it, but I didn't spend as much time doing all that. And then I kind of had a rejuvenation for it. Now I'm back to loving my networking group, loving meeting with clients more, love it, kind of going back to the basics. And that was a huge thing for me. And that was kind of one reason I wanted to scale. And this kind of goes to something I think you were just kind of alluding to, is sometimes the things you love to do are going to change. Like what I loved to do 3 years ago is different now. I still love designing websites with Divi, and I love hearing the client, say they love it and seeing how it helps their business. But now I'm loving reading more. Now I'm loving thinking about bigger picture stuff. Yep. Now I get pumped up when things don't take 20 hours, they take 10, because I think about how that translates financially. My wife and I are expecting our first little one this year. So now congrats. I'm like, thanks, man. Now I'm excited to hopefully be able to pay for insurance. There's a lot of other things that kind of come into play, which I think all kind of mix in with growing a business or, scaling. So yeah, that's great, man.
The other 2 more thoughts I had. One, if someday the goal of the product side of the business is to build that side of the business, and even artillery eventually, and page in a day for sure, to where it could be sold someday. But maybe if the recurring revenue was so good on it, maybe you would just never sell to for quite a while. But so definitely read Built to Sell by John Warrillow. If you haven't read Built to Sell, and he actually has a weekly podcast where he interviews people who have sold their businesses, for millions, some for six figures. One gal sold her business, and after the fees and lawyer fees and everything, lost money, actually.
Oh, wow.
So it's great stories on that.
Built to Sell. Who was that by
Built
again?
to Sell. John Warrillow. I think it's like Warrilow or something like that. But Built to Sell. It's actually a fictional story of an agency creator named Alex Stapleton. His name's on the door, and all the clients want to work with him directly. Sound familiar?
Yes. I'm pumped. I'm pumped, man. I got a goal this year to read 20 books. I did 15 last year, which for me is nuts because I'm not a reader. So that's on the list, man. Built to Sell.
I have listened to Built to Sell more than 10 times. I can quote so much of the book. Jake thinks I'm crazy. He thinks it's like my new Bible. So that's one thing. I guess my last thought I would leave is I had this thought probably a few months ago is that, I know that $3,000, $2,000, $4,000 websites, after you've sold so many of them, and a client comes in, well, how much are they paying? $3,000. Okay, let's just do this or that or whatever. But this one day I was like, how many times do I go out and buy something that's $3,000? Like, what's the last thing you spent $3,000 on? Probably part of your car, or maybe a house or something like that. But like as an item, and you want that item, you're paying $3,000. Let's say you're going to buy a new computer and it's $3,000. You want that thing to work. You want that. My point being is that they're still spending $3,000 with. You're selling a product that somebody is willing to pay, $3,000 plus for. That's pretty sweet. And they have it, and a lot of times they never even meet you face to face.
I literally had that thought, John, on the most recent project. I'm working for a home inspector, and I think I quoted him $2,950, and he went forward with it. Well, he said he was looking out. Yeah, $2,950 just for looking. He was price shopping, but he ended up going with me. And part of me was like, okay, we got a price shopper, whatever. And I was thinking like, okay, $3,000, with taxes and with the hours, like, it'll be pretty good profit, but it wasn't anything big. And that was kind of one where I was like, okay, cool. I wasn't terribly excited, but I just had that thought because after my initial design, I kind of was focusing on some of my other stuff so much that I neglected that. And I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's a home inspector. It's not his full-time business, and he's investing $3,000 in me. I'm so glad you reminded me of that because I kind of glanced over that a couple weeks ago. But yeah. If I were, I think about like our wedding pictures. We paid about that much for our wedding pictures, and that was an investment. But I have no regret because that guy made every penny we spent worth it, and he obviously gave his all on that. And I think about that too. Like I kind of gave half-assed work designing the homepage of that site, and I had to go back and catch myself because like I am not going to settle for that, even at $3,000. I'm not making $3,000 in the long run, but he is spending $3,000, so I got to make
he is spending $3,000, and of course what helps with that is your reputation, your former work, but when you focus on the website being a tool for them to X their revenue as opposed to just an informational brochure site, then that definitely helps. But just it's good to remind yourself of, hey, I got to wake up whenever I want for the most part, and I'm excited Sunday nights. Man, you remember working a 9-to-5 job where Sunday night you're just
I used to be a cabinet maker for a tour bus customizing shop, man. And those Sunday nights, and I was in the band doing the same thing. We were traveling, we were playing on the weekends, and I was like, oh my gosh, I do not want to do this. Making, I think, $9 an hour, Yeah. Brutal. And
now Sunday nights, I am truly excited about what's going to get done this week. What new thought am I going to have this week that I could make? Cut that time down from 20 to 10, or what new process? So, dude, I would say, freelancers, focus on what you're grateful for. Focus on that clients are willing to spend their money with you. That trust is what gives you the business anyway. Yeah. And scale is needed. Absolutely.
One thing, John, I meant to mention to you, if I can encourage you, if anything, is because I was talking with Tim Streifler about this, because he was debating on just product work. But he decided to keep some of his client work. And I know that you're really into the product stuff, but I think it is important to keep that client work just to keep you level and keep you grounded and to keep you aware of the most common problems that are still going on. Because let's face it,
that's true.
All of our child themes, all of our products, layouts, everything that we're doing in the Divi community are solving problems that we probably did for a client. And that's
Yep.
like all the child themes that I'm creating, working on right now, are based off of real designs that clients are using. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out to you, if you ever find yourself drifting off from the client work, is to maintain a good pulse on that, because those, it's showing you what the most real problems are, particularly with Divi, with updates and the way things are changing. It's probably good to keep a finger on, what's going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I know. I appreciate that. And you're spot on that. 100%.
Awesome, John. Well, man, this has been such a good talk. I think it's going to be super valuable for everyone who checks this out. It's good stuff I'm going to include in the series that, again, is going to be on the Elegant Themes blog. So thanks again, man. We will be talking soon. I'm thinking about, I've had so much fun doing this that I'd love to do one on like client processes, weeding out clients, sales and stuff like that. So we might have to do a round 2 on another series here soon, man.
Oh, yeah, anytime. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing your interview with Jake, as I think he'll probably even have more insight on scaling and all that client stuff than I do.
Okay.
And for everyone watching, I hope you're inspired from this. I hope that that what I've shared helps. If you're like me, and sometimes maybe you feel like, wow, maybe I should want that 10 to 20 person agency. It's not bad that you don't. It's fine. Be who you are, but have the future in mind. So yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, John. Cheers, man. Talk to you soon.
Cheers. Go Hawks. All right, later.